hardest thing I had to go through, I think, was being okay with failing things, because science doesn't always work. In fact, if science is always working, you should probably reevaluate everything you're doing.
Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa from Vanny et al., and today I'm interviewing a good friend of mine, Dr. Bianca Jones Marlin.
Hi.
So I met Bianca, what, in 2008, like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Jeez, 10
Nice,
years
a
ago.
decade.
Wow, it's a decade.
My name is Bianca Jones Marlin. I'm a neuroscience postdoc at Columbia at the Dromel Green Buildings of Zuckerman Institute, and I study something called transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, which pretty much means like your grandparents. Yeah, exactly.
Transgenerational
epigenetics inheritance. So pretty much how experiences your grandparents had affect things around your genome and affect the way you operate throughout life.
Wow.
And if trauma can be passed down from grandparents to kids to grandkids. And it's got really huge implications with things like PTSD, certain people groups who have had trauma, and how their current living counterparts live. So
that is so interesting.
Thank you.
And actually, I didn't know you worked on it.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this. And in this landscape
10 years.
where, you know, finally people are starting to have empathy or starting to learn about other people's experiences.
Yeah.
You know, we're in this political climate. Your work might be super important to getting people to understand that there is something called transgenerational epigenetic inheritance.
And it's very much true, because this can be low-level trauma, like like feelings of oppression, feelings of outsidedness, as well as like big traumatic events, like going through war, going through something like 9/11, going through something like
Holocaust.
There's people Holocaust, Black Americans whose parents for generations were starved and also under various other threats. And these things change what we call our epigenome. And so transgenerational means it goes through generations. Epigenetics means it's around the genome. Epi means around the genome. And there are certain cues that say this gene can be read or this gene can't be read, so this gene can be expressed or not expressed. And that changes everything, how you operate in life. It also happens with things like smoking, for example. That can change your epigenome, your diet, your environment. But also, essentially, your internal milieu when it comes to your feelings, will, and your emotion. And so I want to know what's happening there, and how real is that, and can it actually happen in a person, and moreover, can it be passed down? Right,
and if it's passed down, you know, getting this knowledge about epigenetic inheritance. I'm going to keep tripping on that word
now.
I know. Oh God, from chemistry to biology, Jesus. Okay, so this knowledge, what can we do about it? If we know, okay, we can pass this down, what steps can be taken? Can it be reversed? Can it be curbed? Can it be healed?
But always the first step, all of those things would be the question we'd ask. But the first step is always, how does it work? What are we looking at? And that's just basic science. And that's why basic science is so essential, because if we don't understand the basics, we don't understand the base for it all, we're building on falsities. And so once we figure out what mechanism can take place, and on the level of doing neuroscience, we can say, can we reverse this? What if the experience is slightly different? What if the person or the lab example is slightly different? In a bad mood or in a good mood? What things make them resilient? We can perturb these things in the lab, and then we can see how they reflect on society. We can't immediately jump and like save children who have been abused.
But at least we understand.
It brings validation.
Yes.
And it brings information. And if we're bringing information, I think we're doing a good job.
And when people, I think, a lot of this political discourse that happens, especially, and I'm going to go political here, when they say, okay, slavery doesn't have any effect on the current generation and all these things. If you have scientific data to back that, maybe it would help with the discourse between the divide that we're having currently in the country, because I didn't even know this research existed, and I'm going to read up on this after our talk. But this is great that you're working on it, Bianca.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
And the beautiful thing about what you're doing here with Vanny et al. Is exactly this. That data, to the extent of humans, they're out there. My research, I based my research on something called the Dutch hunger winter. So after World War II, there were a group of people in the Netherlands that were starved for about a year. And their kids and grandkids have different metabolic issues, even though they're living in the land of plenty, because there was no food going in. And these studies are there, so it's cool about Banny et al. That you're taking studies that are in papers and bringing it to you, bringing it to the people, so everyone understands what's happening behind these, you know,
and the
glass
scientists that are working on these interesting problems.
So these things are like slavery has effects. Oppressing people have effects.
I mean, there's actual like, you know, sort of empirical data about this, but you know, actually understanding how it affects your genome is new to me, and hopefully new to some people, and we can all learn about this.
I'm working on it as well. I do not have the answer,
but you will see. That's amazing. Okay, all right. How did you get into neuroscience?
How did I get into neuroscience? So
I know you were working on this in 2008. Like, how did you decide you wanted to do this?
Back in 2008, 10 years ago, I was in college and I was majoring in biology and adolescent education. I wanted to be a teacher. I was teaching, like student teaching at the time, and I was just so fascinated as to how my students learned, being from different backgrounds, how different experiences in their backgrounds, as you get to start to know these amazing children who are now like adults and potentially like bosses, how their experiences affect simple things like their ability to take in information. And taking in information in education is so essential, especially in our dynamic culture, that if there's a hindrance there, then maybe my time would be better spent focusing on that. What causes people to learn not so well, what causes people to learn better? How do we optimize that? And so I took the spin from teaching to figuring out how people learn.
The fundamental science.
Fundamental science.
That's amazing. And what opportunities, or you know, sort of what experiences made you realize that, you know, you can do this? You can be a scientist. When was the first time you felt like, okay, I'm going to do this?
Wow. I had an aha moment, I would have to say. So my PhD work, I was at NYU, and I studied the love hormone. It's called oxytocin. And I looked at how parents and kids, using mice, looking at how parents and kids, parents and their offspring, get along with such bond. So like, usually moms, virgins who like never have, we call it the mice virgin, never have kids, like they'll hear the sound of a baby mouse crying and they're like, we need to quiet down. They'll cannibalize.
People do that on airplanes today.
Well, they don't cannibalize on airplanes, but mice will. And so they'll usually quiet up, probably ignore it, like leave it to die, or sometimes they'll even cannibalize them. But once a virgin becomes a mother, instead of cannibalizing it, she takes care of it. So I showed
even if it's not her baby?
Even if it's not her baby.
Wow, okay.
So I showed that a part of the brain called the auditory cortex, so the hearing center, that oxytocin changes the way that message is heard. And in order to do that, we do something called whole cell in vivo physiology. A lot of right. What it means is we record from live neurons, and neurons are electrical. So we can see the changes in electricity, what the neuron's saying. And it's not an easy task.
I understand. Yeah.
And so you have to take like a really small needle and put it in the brain and try to find these neurons like fishing. But for a needle,
so you're doing like literally brain surgery.
Brain surgery, and then waiting for hours to see if you can find a cell. And about 4 months went by, and I had not got, after doing this day after day for 4 months, and I tired myself out. Like spiritually, I was just exhausted, and I was like, I'm not doing this right. What's wrong here? And I remember bringing a friend in, and I was just so disheartened. Like maybe I should change my project. This is not working. And he went through and looked at the data, because he was also a physiologist, doing something called like slice, so it's a little bit easier to get the cells. So it's hard, it looks a little bit different. He's like, out of these 4 months of data, you have about 2 months of usable data. And I think I got like chills all down my spine. Like I didn't know what I was looking for. And I thought it would look like the textbook, beautiful spike goes up, goes down.
That's what we all think before we start grad school.
And so I pretty much
doesn't work that way.
Exactly. All my data was trash. Meanwhile, I was sitting on 2 months of exciting data that led me to amazing discoveries later on. And so not giving up at the 2 month mark, and also not expecting everything to be crisp and clean and perfect. Because that data is in my paper now, and people love that data. And I love that data.
And it's a good thing that you had the, you know, sort of wherewithal to get someone in, fresh eyes, like that helps. That's the point of science, is collaboration. And you need to work in a lab or a space where...
Should I tell you who that person was? That was Joe. That's my husband.
Okay, Joe is instrumental here to everything.
He was like, hey, can you help me figure out this? I know you do recording. Can you look at this? All right.
Is this before he became your husband?
Oh yeah, hands down. He was another kid.
And then you're like, well, thank you. Do you want to marry me?
No. And he was like, oh, you're brilliant. You want to marry me?
Before you went to grad school and, you know, a postdoc, what do you think were the steps you took, you know, when you were much younger, that sort of prepared you for this journey? And what you wish you did?
That's such a question. And I could answer, I think, to the latter better, because I felt woefully unprepared in the first year of graduate school. And I will say, I felt woefully unprepared, that does not mean I was woefully unprepared.
That's just imposter syndrome. We all feel like woefully.
I felt like I was so far out. But certain things I did. In undergrad, I joined a lab that has it has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. I studied fungal genetics. Genetics of fungi.
I mean, the steps of doing good science are the same.
I learned and refined scientific method there over the span of 5 years. I did an extra year of undergrad, victory lap. I had a PI who was very hard on me, and I learned amazing things from her. So that was one thing, just like getting myself into the lab setting, even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do.
Right.
Having diverse interests. I did 2 summer undergraduate programs. One was at Vanderbilt University, and I was looking at drugs in the brain. I'm not studying that now, but I thought it was cool at the time. And second at MIT.
Right, where we met.
Yeah, exactly, which was an amazing summer. So I learned, I learned how amazing, it's a true statement, I'm not even trying to like butter you up, how amazing people are. Like, the fact that we're still friends now, and our group of friends are doing so well, and we're just people who are inspired, who follow our passion. I feel like that's what I got out of those.
Right.
And if I said
network,
a solid network of people.
Yeah.
Because these are going to be your the people who are reading your grants in the future, and the people who are going to go to for collaborations.
Right. Or job referrals. Every job I've gotten, I just gave my resume to a friend.
Yeah.
Even if you're qualified, you need a good network to succeed out there in every industry.
And it doesn't mean walking around with your business card and being like, hi,
it's being a good person.
Thank you. Being a kind person.
Right.
And building that network of people who want to support you and you want to support them.
Right.
I fully agree. To the latter part, what I wished I would have done. I beat myself up so much first year. I I put myself in a situation and now I'm drowning. Why did I jump into the water? I wouldn't have drowned if I would have stayed on shore. And I felt like I was drowning first year. It was a very, very hard time. In retrospect, I also felt like I was drowning first year of undergraduate. It's a transition process.
Right.
If it's easy, you're probably not supposed to be there because it means that you're not going to learn.
You're not challenged. And you're not at that edge of your capability where you need to do amazing work. Basically.
And you need to put in the muscle. Like no one just flips their hair and gets muscles. You have to put work into it.
Right.
And so instead of worrying about how much I was drowning and how embarrassed I was and how other people weren't drowning, other people are living their life and staying hydrated.
Some people are judging, but who cares?
But just as much as my judgment doesn't matter, so I shouldn't judge other people.
Right. It doesn't matter.
And even if it does, it doesn't affect what I should be doing.
You're right.
And so I think just humbling myself and saying like, look, I'm not the best at this, but a PhD means I can be the best at this one thing.
And you did it.
And I wound up being an excellent physiologist and an excellent patcher.
Yes.
And I love my project now, even though it caused me so much agita. It's like a bad relationship, but now we're good.
Yeah.
Went to counseling, we're good.
Yeah, we fixed it. That's good. But you're doing so well right now, Bianca. I'm like really proud of you. So, what advice would you have for a girl, who's trying to go into neuroscience and who is who thinks of it as a daunting thing that she can't accomplish? Like, we were just talking about what your PI does. He discovered how smell works, which is just amazing. He has a Nobel Prize. Like these are there are amazing scientists doing great things out there. And there's so many girls who think, maybe can I do this? I don't know. Is it only an older, strong-looking guy that can do this? But we can all do this. Like how can you motivate someone?
Talking about this because it's so particular because we're studying neuroscience. I think this does happen in all sciences, but because I love neuroscience, I see it so bright here that every individual's experience influences their science. And so if I wasn't a teacher, my parents they're amazing people, they were foster parents. If I didn't have foster siblings, I wouldn't have this dynamic approach to studying things like maternal behavior and things like trauma.
Right.
I'm essential for science. Science,
definitely.
And
someone who has not experienced anything cannot understand trauma. Even if the data comes out, they're just like,
how do you experiment and how do
Yeah.
And so I don't want to pat myself on the back, but like science benefits from my experience.
I agree.
And science benefits from your experience, and whoever that your is, you can do it because your unique experience will influence this. And like I can't express that enough. Every time I have a new technician or a new undergraduate who wants to work with me, and I hear their story, and they give me amazing advice. Like, one time I have a student now who was sick at Chipotle, and she's like, I know it's like low key, but that was traumatic for me. And so should we look at like nausea and trauma? And I was like, that's actually an excellent idea. And that was her whole summer project.
Right.
Because of it, and it was smaller.
Something that happened to her.
Something that happened to her that didn't happen to me. And so
every perspective is valid at the table.
Is essential at the table. It's not like, oh, we're letting you in here. It's like, it's essential for this thing to work.
Right.
And until we realize that, like, we're just holding ourselves back in science.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Bianca.
Thank you.
I had like, such a great time talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this. And I wish you all the best. I can't wait for you to be a professor and I interview again in your life.
Thank you.